Teaching children to read is notoriously tricky, and theories about how to teach it are constantly evolving. In this programme, I see how it's being taught in 2 inner-city primary schools, one in London and one in Birmingham. What do you most like reading?
The 102 Dalmatians.
100 and how many Dalmatians?
1, 2, 3, 4.
I get to grips with the latest techniques and strategies used in each school aimed at driving up reading ability. And I find out what current research is telling us about what is working in the attempt to continue the rise of literacy standards in primary education.
The implementation of the National Literacy Strategy did raise standards in our schools. The challenge has to be, how do we unlock that plateauing of standards?
She's made a heart-shaped cake. That would be nice. I once made a heart-shaped cake. Esther is a pupil at Woodbury Down Community School in Year 1. She lives with her family, including younger brother Daniel, in North London. 100 miles away, Hasib goes to Starbank Primary School in Birmingham. We asked them to give us some help with this documentary, along with their Year 1 classmates. Esther and Hasib have learnt to read in different ways, but they have one thing fundamentally in common.
Phonics.
Good morning, Year 1.
Good morning, Miss Simon.
Okay, are you ready to do your speed sounds?
Here at Woodbury Down Community Primary School, phonics has been a central part of their attempt to raise standards, and they've had incredible success.
I'm going to point to the speed sound, you're going to say it. Beautiful.
There are 400 kids here, many from difficult backgrounds. Greg Wallace, the head, has turned it around, raising the number of children achieving the required Key Stage 1 in English from 69% to 94% in 1 year.
Noise, noise, roof, roof.
Test results were really low in 2001, and that's the year that I became the head teacher. During the course of that first year, I realised that what was going on, which was lots and lots of different things, wasn't working. And towards the end of that summer, we were looking around for something that was going to quite quickly turn that situation around. And the answer to that was definitely synthetic phonics, and a very rigorous approach to synthetic phonics as well.
See, when I left university, I don't know, I'm quite embarrassed to say this, but actually I had no idea on how you taught young children to read. And so for the first 2 years of my teaching career, I read books to children and hoped a love of reading would encourage them to read. And it didn't, and they didn't learn to read.
One of the things that really struck me about what you shouldn't be doing in school was let them be attracted into reading by the power of books, because that on its own doesn't work. It's really important, the love of literature, but if I can't read, I'm never going to be able to access those texts. What's important when you start to implement anything is that you do it absolutely wholeheartedly, and that you have the training, you get the commitment, and it's not about an option. This is a method that you can use if you want to. If you work here, this is the method that you will use to teach every child to read, because every child will learn to read. This is a good way of doing it. We'll give you all the support to enable you to do that, but this is what you do, and you stick to that till they can read, and then all sorts of other things can happen. Consistency is the word.
For some teachers, the decision of the government to implement synthetic phonics at the heart of the curriculum seemed like a worrying top-down imposition of a method of teaching that had been in and out of fashion for 50 years.
I like the boat.
There is more than one way of teaching synthetic phonics, but the very principle has its critics who say it doesn't teach meaning or a love of reading, and that it won't work for all pupils.
The notion in synthetic phonics that it's this really kind of 1950s, just chant the sounds and everyone learns to read, it isn't like that, and you'd be an appalling teacher if you did that. All those people that criticise phonics, all they actually show is that they're ineffective teachers because they've never taught it properly.
What the Rose Report asked was that teachers should be more clear about how they were teaching phonics and more aware of the impact of their teaching. It's not enough to say we're implementing a phonics programme if, at the end of the day, the children aren't using what they know to enable them to be better readers and writers.
How does he get on with the lion? Are they friends? Are they not friends? Do they get on really well? How do they get on? Tell me about that. Esther came to the nursery here and had very limited speech. By the time she got to the school, following the literacy programme, she picked up both her speaking and her reading skills very rapidly. She's now in year 1, and because of her confidence and the skills that she's mastered so rapidly, she's actually taught her younger brother, who is in reception, to read his sounds and also blend. Now, what do we have here? What's that there? It's an what's that symbol there? It's an exclamation mark, isn't it?
That means you have to shout it loud.
I'm really, really inspired by how effective it is. Every single child that I've taught, even in year 1, when they're only 5 years old, are very effective readers, and I do think it is because of the Synthetic Phonics programme.
Can you remember what it was like before? I know it's a long time to remember back. Can you remember what it felt like to be a little girl looking at a page full of words? How did that feel?
It felt like I just didn't know how to read, and I wouldn't know how to read for a long time.
And then what happened?
Then for my teachers helped me how to read chapter books and to learn.
And now, what do you think about reading?
It's amazing.
Having spent a day here at Woodbury Down, I'm impressed not just by the level of engagement of the children, but also the speed at which they appear to be learning.
Speed Phonics is all about going back to what the primary purpose of what we're trying to do is, which is to make the children decode text effortlessly and eventually get close to that 100 words a minute. If I, every time I see have to sit looking at it for ages thinking, what's that? I'm never going to be able to get to the point where I can just go mat and read through the word.
These green words have the sound oh, well done. So are you ready to read them? Yeah. Ready, steady, sitting up nice and tall. Beautiful. Ready, steady, go. Good. Beautiful. Oh, you're so good, aren't you? Turn to your partner and say, fantastic reading. Fantastic reading. Well done.
A child's learning in phonics needs to be systematic and it needs to be complete. It's not enough for the child to have a smattering. They need to learn everything they need to know about the letter-sound correspondences in our language.
This thorough approach is part of an ongoing development of how phonics is now being used, not just for reading, but to link what is being learnt with other crucial aspects of literacy.
Improvements!
Before, phonics had been seen very much as part of the reading programme in school, and it was used to decode words. But it was actually the National Literacy Strategy that first of all said when children learn phonics, they should use it to actually work out how to spell words as well.
Linking reading, spelling and writing together closely is a key feature of the Synthetic Phonics programme taught at Woodbury Down.
Right, the next word we're going to do, a word that I've seen lots of you do in your writing, it's the word creature.
Your creature.
Beautiful. Turn to your partner and just say, you are amazing.
You are amazing.
Right, next word is picture.
Linking phonics teaching with writing and spelling was hugely powerful because it meant they were using phonics twice as often. And it also was twice as powerful because it did actually give them a spelling strategy, a very explicit spelling strategy that worked.
Right, give yourselves little tick, it, little tick, little tick, tss, little tick, your little tick. Right, next tricky word.
From what I've seen at Woodbury Down, a big question remains. Is the new approach to teaching phonics helping to raise attainment throughout England?
I think it's too soon to say. You have to make evidence-based decisions, I think, in teaching, and we don't actually have enough data to show whether or not it's doing good or not. It may well be that for different types of child, it's having different sorts of effects.
There are recommendations about how it can be improved, and certainly there are approaches to systematic phonics which could refine the approaches which are used in a lot of schools. However, the argument about phonics has been won.
Every child a reader.
In many assessments of education internationally, Britain does extremely well with our average ability readers, and we're very good with the most able readers. But one problem that we've had for many years is a long tail of underachievement.
We have a large number of children leaving primary school unable to read adequately, unable to write adequately, and with limited numeracy.
Some 6% of children, including nearly 1 in 10 boys, leave primary school to go into secondary education without even the most basic skills in reading and writing. The percentage of such children has remained static nationally over the last 5 years, at a time when literacy standards as a whole have risen steadily in our primary schools. To try and tackle this persistent problem, a national initiative called Every Child a Reader was set up in 2008.
Every Child a Reader challenged schools' assumptions about what was possible for lowest attaining children.
Central to the initiative is Reading Recovery. It's an intervention programme developed over the last 30 years, and it's at the cutting edge of lifting the attainment of the lowest achieving children.
Every Child a Reader has been really, really useful because that's the mechanism that's enabled us to get into reading recovery. Because of Every Child a Reader, it was going to be heavily subsidised. So then it made it affordable.
We assess the bottom 5% of children in year 1, and from that we will then select the children we feel need the support of reading recovery.
Unlike Esther, 6-year-old Hasib is struggling with his reading, and he's one of the pupils currently in the intervention programme at Starbank Primary School in Birmingham. He will have daily half-hour lessons, up to a maximum of 20 weeks.
It's very important to put intervention in early. When a child first starts to learn to read and write, we have an opportunity to understand how the child is approaching the task. Small children are more likely to think aloud. They'll talk about what they're trying to do, and that gives the teacher a window into understanding how this child is approaching the task, what they're noticing, what they're looking at, and maybe what they're overlooking that they really should be attending to. We've seen that older children begin to close up. They're less willing to accept help. They're more likely to feel embarrassed, frustrated, and to have given up on reading and writing. The longer we leave it, the greater the difference.
Tailoring.
Hasib is now in week 12 of the programme. Each session is clearly structured and tailored to the individual child's needs.
We begin with a familiar read. That's a few books that he will have read, and it will give him pace, confidence, fluency, and also get him into the swing of it. I will take a running record.
You grabbed the teacher's shoes.
Any words which he has any difficulty with, we will work on and we'll refer back to the book, because it's all about making links with the book and with the whole story.
The course is based around developing a deep understanding. It's not just about learning skills or delivering a programme. The teacher has to learn to be an expert observer, to try to get into the mind of the child, to see the logic of why this child would think this way, and see if they can help the child to find a more efficient and a more effective way of approaching reading and writing.
We have a natural conversation, and from that we will draw a story which the child feels comfortable and excited to write about.
Hasib, you were really excited the other day, weren't you, on World Book Day? You dressed up in a special costume, didn't you? What book? Pirate costume. Do you think maybe when you've done lots of little stories over a few days, we could make a
pirate story, proper long one?
A proper long one. Shall we do that? So we started today.
Then the last section is the introduction of the new book. We will talk about the story. He will look at all the range of strategies, using them to decode meaning, to work out words, to comprehend the story. Then we will work on any words that he found difficulty with, and we will return to the text again to see those words and to make sense of them in context.
The other essential part of reading is understanding what you're reading, paying attention to it as you're reading, and making sense of it as you go along.
I'm not going to talk any more about the book, so we're going to read it and I'm going to ask you questions about it afterwards. But first of all, before we go back and just do our reading, I want to ask you about this sentence here. Aaron, what does this sentence mean? What does this saying mean? One good turn deserves another.
It means if you do something good to someone, something good one day will happen to you.
Do you know, Aaron, I think you need to give me a handshake, because not only was that the correct answer, but it was a really, really good, well-formed sentence that you just told me. Good boy, Aaron.
We know that if a child's comprehension is bad at 7, it is very, very highly likely to be bad at 17. And it's very difficult to find out effective ways of intervening with children who have very poor comprehension. And we also know that teachers are not always terribly reliable at recognising children with poor comprehension, particularly if the child is very good at decoding. If the phonics teaching has been very, very successful, the child's decoding fluently, they can sound as though they are reading and you assume they are understanding it, but in fact, they haven't a clue.
What does the research say?
The research indicates that a technique called reciprocal teaching in comprehension is quite helpful. So a teacher would model. She would read a passage and stop in the middle and ask questions about it, ask herself questions as a reader, and then she would get the children in pairs to take that over and model it to each other.
What is partner work?
When a child can teach another child, that tells you as a teacher they know 100% what they're doing. Little children become very good at pleasing their teacher. When they're with their peer and they're showing their partner something, when they've done that as a teacher, you can say to yourself, brilliant, I know they understand.
It's really important that they understand what their role is as that partner. Are you in your perfect partner positions?
Yes.
Are your chairs tucked in, Bonnie? Is your book in between both of you? Are you both looking at the first words? Right, I'm going to come round with my perfect partner stickers. Children who get these perfect partner stickers will be children who are working really well in their partners. That means teachers, you're going to be really good teachers with your lollipop stick and you're going to be praising really well, Natea. If you're reading, you're going to be following what your teacher says and reading really well with expression. Are you ready? Steady, Natea. Go.
Even good teaching techniques in the whole class environment do not always work for all children, and some do require more direct attention when they're experiencing difficulty.
By teaching them one-to-one, we can make sure that the whole time we are working with what this child needs to think about, needs to know, and needs to attend to. And it is a much more efficient and faster way of teaching that child.
An added benefit at each school using the Reading Recovery Intervention Programme is a positive effect not only on the one-to-one lessons, but on the whole school.
A reading recovery teacher supports the very lowest attaining children, but their training and their professional expertise puts them in a position to provide a wider range of support in the school to enable, for example, teaching assistants, classroom teachers, anyone involved in early literacy, to find more effective and more efficient ways of supporting a wider range of children. So every child a reader has reading recovery at its heart, but is more than just reading recovery.
We're seen as sort of being the experts in reading, and staff do come to us with children who are having difficulties or they're not sure where to go next. So it has permeated across the school. And I think as a school, it's just highlighted reading as being a vital skill.
We are going to build a large group of staff who are really tuned in with children's reading. And since that still unlocks the door to everything else, it's sort of fundamentally important.
Findings.
In the third year of Every Child a Reader, those children who finished the course, on average, moved on from a reading age of 4 years and 10 months to a reading age of 6 years and 7 months, after 41 hours of one-to-one teaching. Between 2007 and 2008, schools that were involved in Every Child a Reader showed better progress in their Key Stage 1 results in reading than the national trend. For Hasib, the programme has been a real success.
Hasib is doing very well in class now. He's an independent learner. He's keen to learn lots of new things. The teacher is very happy with the progress he's making and sustaining that progress. And he is much more confident and much more interested in what's going on in class, in the learning environment around him.
We were excited that they're going to take extra time out and help him improve his
every day, half an hour.
Reading. It's good that Starbank School are doing that, pulling up kids that are lacking. Because when we were kids, we never had that, So I think they're doing a good job. Before, he wasn't putting much effort in. He'll be there and he'll mumble anything. But now he's going through the word, each word, try to make it up and,
He has lots of confidence to read.
With his reading and with his program, he's improved his behaviour as well. Before, the teacher will say every day when I used to come pick him up, he's done this today, he's done that. And since he's been in the classes, not even once these complaints been made against him. So he's done quite good. We're really proud of him.
The home learning environment.
At both Starbank and Woodbury Down primary schools, parental involvement has been key to some of the success they've had with their early years literacy programmes.
Hasib's parents have been very involved. We got their agreement and understanding of what Reading Recovery Programme is about and their input as well, which is vital, that the parents support this because we send the books and the story home at night and we want those parents to become involved and work with their children and encourage them to read as much as possible.
Parents are absolutely key to children and the parents are going to be with the children for much longer than we are.
So just how important is the home learning environment? Well, the Millennium Cohort study conducted by the Institute of Education has tracked 19,000 British children who were born at the start of the 21st century. The survey found that children with parents who read to them daily at the age of 3 were more likely to flourish when they started primary education, and they were ahead of their peers, more than 2 months ahead, not only in language and literacy, but also in maths.
The home learning environment is very important. In our research, we've looked at a large number of children over a long time and looked at the factors affecting their learning ability, family, social class, parents' education, and so on. And we found that the home learning environment is the most powerful effect of all. To a large extent, the home learning environment is outside the school's control. However, they can encourage parents to take an interest in their child's education. They can make suggestions about things that the child might do at home which might help in their learning. They can be welcoming to parents so that parents have a positive attitude to learning. And all of these things help.
For Esther and Daniel, their home is where they first started learning to read with their mum Shola. And it is where perhaps most of all they continue to progress in their journey to read, not just because they have to, but because they choose to.
I remember when we had this parent-teachers meeting, because when they come home, a lot of the time, I don't know what they're talking about. So I really want to, when I go to the parent-teachers meeting, I really want to know what they're doing, what are the methods that they use, so that when I get home, when I'm talking, it wouldn't be like I'm probably speaking in tongues. So I do ask them questions, so it helps me to help them.
Why do you think the school is so good at teaching children to read?
I really don't know. There must be something they're doing there that's really, really good. I can't explain it, but it's reflecting on the kids.
And you've seen it work?
I've seen it work. And they're reading the books on their own. We were meant to be reading the books to them, but they now read the books on their own. It's not just reading it, it's understanding what they read as well, which is what I'm really impressed. I'm loving it, every moment of it, because the thing is they come back from school and the next thing they do is they just take out their books, they want you to read it. They just want to read it.
100% literacy.
The figures seem to suggest that there's still a lot to achieve. I mean, how would you like to see that being done?
If we are to raise standards in our primary schools, we have to build on the basis that there is a general acceptance that phonics is the approach to teaching children to read, in which case we can begin to look imaginatively and creatively about how other resources are brought into play. From our perspective, the fundamental resource needs to be the family.
We can certainly capitalise on what's been learnt in the last 10 to 15 years on the importance of the home, the preschool and the school, and exactly what factors in those environments are important. And that will lead to steps forward if we act appropriately on them.
We need to give our kids the best start that we can. That's why we're investing so much in the early years.
It's a great feeling. It's really satisfying knowing that these children are able to read and comprehend. As a teacher, I know that is my responsibility, that's my duty.
It gives me a phenomenal amount of satisfaction. It's just wow, I tell you.
This is an exhausting thing to watch, and there's no way you could do it day in, day out, unless you actually believed in it mattering deeply. So tell me what motivates you.
I think my motivation for developing literacy in schools is that I know that if these children in this estate in Hackney have good literacy levels, it will change their lives. It will change their lives on a whole range of ways.
Learning to read in the early years matters so much because being an efficient and an enthusiastic and a skilled reader and writer is at the heart of everything in education. Without that, nobody's going to make any progress. But it's really important that children learn it early, they learn it quickly, and they learn it in a way that is enjoyable, because they have to be able to not just do reading and writing, but really engage with it, really enjoy it, and be prepared to explore ideas through both reading and writing.